loves, and welcome back to I'm on Your Side with me, Sierra Boudreau. I'm so excited to have you guys back. Last week, we talked about the depression of it all, and honestly, I just was not in the best place, and I felt like it would be impossible to try to record a podcast episode while I was in that place and pretend that everything was fine. But you guys really loved that episode and really received it so well, and I got some great DMs about some of you guys who were going through the same thing or similar things, or just being in a really negative headspace as well, or dealing with really negative intrusive thoughts. And so I think that reminds me of why I love the podcast so much and why I love long form content so much, because I feel like I get to connect with you guys in a much more meaningful way than I get to on Instagram or TikTok. Not to say that what I do on Instagram or TikTok isn't meaningful by any means. I think that it absolutely is. But I think that with long form content, I get to really sit down and work through my thoughts with you guys and share them in a longer way, in a way that I can really flesh out everything that I'm feeling and explain things in more detail. Because I think with, Instagram, you only get a minute and 30 seconds for reels, and for TikTok, you get up to 3 minutes. I never got the 10-minute feature, by the way. Or actually, no, I did get the 10-minute feature and then it went away. I guess they were like, that's not for her. She doesn't need that. So they took it away. But very rarely do I use a 3-minute feature, just because there's, things that come with using the 3-minute feature, blah, 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 blah. But it's kind of hard to convey everything that I'm feeling and explain things fully beginning to end when your time constraints are that short. And so with the podcast, I get to come on here and really talk through things. And I just have been loving the responses that I've been getting from you guys. I feel honored that you guys would listen to it week in and week out and share it, and DM me about it, and we can talk more about the episode. So I just wanted to start this episode off with a huge round of gratitude, just because I feel so lucky and so privileged to get to do this and to have really found a lot of joy in long form content, found a lot of joy in the podcast. I think I knew when I started the podcast that I was going to end up loving it, but now we're 7 episodes in and it is my favorite thing that I do in the content creation space. I think that TikTok and Instagram comes with its own sort of anxieties and fears and nerves, because I think that is tied to most of my income, you know what I mean? And so you're always worried about likes and engagement and retention and all of those things, but the podcast just really feels like a group of us hanging out, and that's what I love so much about it. And of course, the hope is for the podcast to grow and grow and excel, and it will get there. But right now, it just feels like me and a couple thousand of my best friends hanging out, and so that's what I'm really thankful for. But let's get into what am I doing? Where am I going? What am I watching? First off, what am I watching? Have you guys started One Day on Netflix? And I ask because me and like all of my friends are watching it right now. One of my friends just finished it and she said it emotionally wrecked her, but I feel like it's not going to really do a number on me because I was so deeply attached to the movie, the movie with Anne Hathaway, and I was so deeply attached to it. And I remember the first time I saw it and the ending, I sobbed like a baby. I'm not usually a movie crier, but at the end of One Day, I really, truly did cry. So I just, now that I know what's going to happen, I don't know if it's going to affect me as deeply because I've seen the movie maybe 50 times, maybe 100 times. If I'm being honest, I've seen that movie so many times. But what I do like about the show is that all of the things in the movie, and I haven't read the book, so I can't compare it to the book, but all of the things in the movie are kind of like explained more and drawn out more, and you get more detail than you did in the movie, because in the movie it was the same premise. You get like 15 to 20 minutes of one single day, July 15th, that they're going through. But in the show, it's a 30-minute episode, I think, or maybe a 40-minute episode of the day. And so you get more details, and I really am enjoying that. But for the first couple of episodes, I did indeed find the main character absolutely insufferable. And I didn't want to. I did not want to find her insufferable. I hate finding female characters insufferable. But comparing the way that Emma is portrayed in the show to how Emma is portrayed in the movie, I just felt like there's something different about it that I just wasn't really vibing with. Maybe it was like the actor's character choices, or maybe how it was written and the actor didn't have any choice but to portray Emma that way. But I just did not love it. And over time, it's not that I ended up liking it more, but I think that I just got more used to how TV show Emma is as opposed to movie Emma. So I'm going to finish. I'm on episode 4. I've been a really slow TV watcher just because I have learned that my attention span is actually zilch. I have no attention span and I'm working on it. I say that and I'm working on it. I'm working on it because it is absolutely rotting my brain the way that like I'm online for so many hours a day. Not only is it my job, but being online is, of course, a source of entertainment. And so I'm online and I'm watching these 15 to 20-second videos. And then the way that people edit now is very fast paced. You know, those quick edit videos where it's like boom, boom, boom. And so I'm so used to watching that. And so my attention span is just like really not great. So watching long form content is just tougher for me. And I really don't like that. That's not something about myself that I want to just accept and not work on. That is something that I am acknowledging and absolutely do want to work on because I just cannot be 25 with the attention span of a gnat. Like I cannot live that way. So I'm working on it. But all that to say, that's what I'm watching. And back to when I said I wasn't really a movie crier, and I'm not. But if you guys haven't seen Iron Claw, I really do want you to watch it. I want everyone to watch it. Iron Claw is the movie about wrestling with Zac Efron and Jeremy Allen White. And gosh, I'm forgetting her name. The female main character, Lily Allen, I want to say. But maybe Lily Allen is also the name of a singer and not this person. Lily James. Lily Allen, I think, is a British pop star. Lily James, I think, is the actress, the American actress. So Lily James, she's incredible in it. I think the whole cast is incredible. And I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not going to tell you the scene that wrecked me the most. But there's this one scene where everyone in the theater just takes this huge breath in, and then it's just like silent. It's just so, so sad. So loved that movie if you haven't seen it yet. Where am I going? I think next month I'm going to go to New York because obviously a lot of my influencer friends live there and a lot of them have podcasts and they want me to be on their podcast, which I would absolutely love to do. But a lot of them record in person, which totally makes sense. I think when I do have guests on this podcast, I would much prefer them to be in person. So I'm going to fly to New York and just spend time with them as friends and then also do some work stuff like be on their podcast, meet with my managers because one of my managers lives in New York and I love getting to meet with her and spend a little time with her in person. So that's where I'm going next month and I'll have more details on that as it comes up. What am I doing? Really? I have just been a ball of anxiety. That's what I'm doing. I'm being anxious. I kind of came out of my depression spiral and I came out of it not just because I sat around and waited to come out of it. I immediately met with my therapist, immediately met with my psychiatrist, and my psychiatrist and I decided to up my bipolar meds because we think that the 20 milligrams of my bipolar meds was just too low. I think that there are a lot of mood stabilization qualities in that medicine that I really do need. And so now it's back on the drawing board that I have bipolar disorder and ADHD. So working through that, I want to do a full episode on it when I have more details about it and more clarity on it. I just would hate to do an episode and then have to do another episode 2 episodes later and be like, actually, everything I said is no longer true. So I'm giving you guys bits and pieces as they come up, but I'm going to do a full episode on my diagnosis journey once I have clarity on said diagnosis. But we upped my meds again, and that helped. It feels like instantly. I just feel so much better. Then we also upped my ADHD med. And I told you guys that I'm on Wellbutrin for ADHD. And I tell you guys the name of that medicine and not the bipolar medicine because I think that Wellbutrin is a really great alternative to being on a stimulant. And I think that a lot of people think, okay, well, if I'm going to be medicated for ADHD, I need to be on a stimulant. And that's not necessarily true. So I think that telling you that there is an antidepressant that does work for ADHD is helpful in case you want to talk to your doctors, your psychiatrist about your other options besides stimulants. Because I know that before I met with my psychiatrist, I truly did believe that the only medicine I could be on was a stimulant. And the more research I do and the more that I think about it, I'm not sure that I would love to be on one. I'm not saying, counting it out forever. I'm just saying as of right now, the Wellbutrin is working so well. But I think that with the bipolar meds, it's a little bit different because everyone truly is different with their bipolar meds and what works for them. And it can be a wide range of reactions from this is the best thing I've ever tried to this is the worst thing I've ever tried. And I just think that that's a conversation that would be better suited with your doctor and not me. And if that explanation doesn't really make sense and you're like, why would she tell me one and not the other? I tried my best to explain why, but just if anything, of course, you guys respect my boundaries and understand that is a boundary I've set. So I'm not worried about it, but that's kind of a long-winded explanation of why I tell you that I'm on Wellbutrin and not which bipolar med I'm on. So that's what I'm doing. But I've been so anxious, and I think that I've been so anxious because I've been just like living in my head. Just I have not been out of my head. I think since even before the depression spiral I was in, I think that I've just been really in my head and unable to get out of it. And I think it's been causing me a lot of anxiety, but I also think that's due to the nature of the job that I have, which is influencing. And do not hear me say influencing is hard. I didn't say that. Influencing is not hard. But there are mental tolls it takes just like any other job. You know what I mean? Like you could be an accountant from 9 to 5 and that has mental tolls in the same way that influencing has mental tolls. I think that the mental tolls and of course the physical tolls and the emotional tolls are just different. But I don't believe there's any job in the world that is just perfectly joyous and nothing feels wrong and everything is great. And if there is, please let me know. Please let me know because I'll go on LinkedIn and apply today. I will do that job today. But I haven't found that job yet, so influencing it is. But along with my ball of anxiety, I've also been feeling a lot of stress, and I wanted to talk about that this week because I feel like the way that we do the podcast here is like I am going through something, I'm experiencing something, and I want to share how I've worked through it with you or how I'm actively working through it at the moment, or just be completely transparent and be like, I have not worked through this at all, but this is how I'm feeling. I think that that's the style that I have made over on TikTok, on Instagram, and so it only feels right to carry it over here. So all of that said, I've been dealing with a lot of stress, and I think that a lot of us are. I think after the holidays, you put so much stuff off till after the holidays. You're like, okay, it's November, we'll revisit this in January. But of course, through the month of January, for the first half of the month, people are still on PTO, people are still gone. Like you're not really catching up on things just yet. And then the end of the month comes and you're in February and it still feels like you're catching up. Like I really do feel like you're catching up after the holidays until March. I felt like that when I was in corporate. I feel like that now. I just feel like that there is a lot of catching up to be done after the holidays, which can lead to a lot of stress. So I know that this is not just necessarily an influencer problem. I think that this is just a adult problem where we're dealing with a lot of stress in our day-to-day lives. And I do not know that a lot of us have the right tips and tricks or tools to manage it. I think when we think about stress, a lot of us were told when we were younger, or at least I was told when I was younger, like, oh, you're not stressed. You don't know what stress is. And that really did not benefit me at all. I think that if I was taught how to deal with stress from a younger age, rather than having it just swept under the rug or having it disregarded, I could better handle stress as an adult. But for my entire childhood, I was told that I wasn't stressed. I didn't know what stress was. I wasn't allowed to be stressed. You know what I mean? And I think that that's because a lot of my family members or my parents were dealing with a level of stress that I hadn't reached yet, obviously, as I was a child and they were an adult and they were dealing with different stressors in their life that I could not relate to. But I think that the disadvantage there is that they, in their adult age, forgot what it was like to be a child, forgot what it was like to be a teenager and deal with real life things that come along with those age groups. I think that when we get kind of farther removed from certain phases of our lives or certain periods of our life, we kind of forget what it was like to be there. And then it's very easy to disregard somebody who is there and their feelings. So I think that a lot of that happened to me when I was a child, and I'm sure it happened to a lot of you because I think that adults just find it very comfortable to minimize the emotions of a child. And that's something that I really am very cognizant of because I recognize how it affects me in my adulthood. And I definitely don't want to do that to myself now. And I don't want to do that to my kids. But obviously I don't have kids now. So really I can only focus on myself. And I think that when you're taught from a very young age to ignore your stress or minimize your stress, it is really hard to flip that switch into adulthood and think, okay, I actually do have to manage this. And I do deserve to manage this. And I do deserve to feel better. Disregarding it is not going to make the stress go away. It's only going to springboard into something bigger later down the line because I don't know how to deal with it as it comes up. So I think that I've learned some helpful tools to manage my stress, some things that have been making me feel better. And I wanted to share them with you guys so that we are not just sweeping our stress under the rug, because when we do that, it is bound to come back up and it's going to overflow and we're going to end up lashing out at people. We're going to end up making really irrational decisions. We're going to end up doing things we regret because we're so stressed and we don't know how to let it out. So that's what this whole episode is about. And I'm really excited to share it with you guys. So let's get into it. One thing that I've really been working on is understanding where my stress is coming from, whether it be work stress, relationship stress, physical stress, whatever it may be, understanding and identifying where it's coming from so that I can fix it from that point on. Because the thing that I know about stress is that it'll start in one place. Say it's in your relationship. Say you're having a really hard time with a friend. You're going through a friend breakup, like we talked about in the friendship episode, and you're really stressed about that, you don't know how to overcome that, and it's bleeding into everything else you're doing. The problem with not identifying where that's coming from is that you're going to try to fix other areas of your life and then assume that because you fix those other areas, the stress in the actual area is going to go away. And that's not the case. We have to understand and identify where it's coming from so we can fix it from there, and then let the goodness of fixing it from there bleed into the other aspects of our life rather than the other way around. And I've learned that because I think that I have had a really big tendency to try to look at my stress as this very overarching theme. And put it all into the same box. Everything is in the same box when I was looking at stress. And I didn't understand that I was only doing myself a disservice by doing that because I wasn't identifying the key root, and I wasn't really getting honest with myself about where the stress was coming from. And when I was able to do that and understand where the stress was coming from, it made it a lot easier for me to take actionable steps, because I think that I have a problem with big picture looking. I'll look at the big picture of things and try to put everything into the same box. And I very rarely sit back and say, okay, what is the actual thing going on and how can I fix that actual thing? I think in terms of stress, I look at my whole life and I'm stressed about my whole life, or so I think I'm stressed about my whole life, which one makes the stress seem that much more magnified because I'm not understanding where it's coming from. I'm just saying, I am stressed. I am a stressed person. I am stressed about everything. And I think when I do that, when I just identify myself as a stressed person and I think that I'm stressed about everything, not only does it feel that much more unmanageable because I don't really know where it's coming from, nor am I really trying to figure out where it's coming from. I am settled into the fact that I am just a stressed person and I don't know where to start. But when I take the time to sit down with myself and say, okay, you are stressed about work, you are stressed about this relationship thing, you are stressed about your friendship, you're stressed about your family, and then tackle it from that point of view, it becomes so much more manageable and I can create action steps. What I've learned about myself is that I'm an action steps girl down. If I don't have a clear path towards something, I tend to get very, very overwhelmed by said thing, and then that leads to more stress. I need to be able to look at things for what they truly are and figure out how to heal them and how to help them in manageable ways. Because when I look at everything big picture, I have a very hard time knowing where to start and knowing where to end, and it becomes a whole jumbled mess. And the second thing is that I like to look at stress like that, look at it very individually rather than looking at it as this overarching feeling that I'm having, because when I look at it individually, I can understand what I can eliminate and what I can't. There are some things I can get rid of and some things that I am stressed about, and those are not things that I can necessarily change. One thing, if you are in this relationship and it is causing you a lot of stress, it's causing you a lot of anxiety, you do have the capability of changing that. You can talk to them about it, see if they're going to be receptive to any change. If not, you can take other steps, like maybe going to couples therapy if that's your thing, especially if you're married. I know a lot of married couples do benefit from couples counseling in that way. Not that it's only reserved for married couples. I just think that it's more common to do couples counseling when you are married. Or if you've tried everything that you could possibly try, you can end the relationship and you can try again later down the line with someone new after you give yourself the time and the space to heal and reflect on that relationship that you had just left. I mean, there are things that you can do to eliminate that stress, but there's some things like work stress. You have a really big project coming up and it is your responsibility to do it. You have a deadline, you have a due date, and you are given ample time to do it. It's just kind of a stressful thing to do. That is not necessarily stress that you can just eliminate. You see the difference there, that there's some stress you can eliminate and some stress you can't, and identifying what you can eliminate and what you can't eliminate is really, really key here. But also a really important thing is to remember that the stressful feeling in those situations where you can't eliminate them are not meant to last forever. If you find yourself perpetually stressed about the same situation for months and for years, it is taking a toll on your body. It is taking a toll on your mental health. It is taking a toll on your relationships. Maybe it's time to put in place a better boundary. And your best boundary, I say this all the time to myself, to my friends, to you guys, your best boundary is saying no. Sometimes you genuinely do not have it in you to complete said task or do that thing or lead that meeting or whatever it may be. Sometimes you just don't have it in you, and you should be allowed to say no. You should be allowed to say, I need help with that task, or I just can't take that on right now. Or something that I saw a while ago on TikTok when I was still working corporate. So I was getting served a lot of corporate content. And it really, really helped me when your boss or your manager approaches you and they're like, hey, I need you to tackle this task, and you really don't have the bandwidth to do it. The response that they said, that you can say, which I really did love, they said, in order for me to do this task, I need to remove something from my plate. Are you willing to help me remove something else, or do you know where I can reassign it? And I luckily didn't have to use that very often when I worked in my corporate life, but I did have to use it maybe once or twice and just like, hey, I would love to do that task. I think that I am capable of doing that task. I think that I would be good at doing that task. That said, I can't do that task and all of these other things that I have going on as well. I need to either delegate something else to someone else, or I can't take that on at this given time. And the conversation after that always went really well. And luckily, I had really good bosses and managers when I worked corporate. Very, very thankful for that. I know that some people do not have good bosses and managers, and they're not receptive to things like that. But I'm hoping that you guys do. And if not, there are different ways to go about saying no. But if you also don't feel like you can say no in a lot of situations at work, if you feel like you are perpetually stressed and always carrying way too much, maybe it is time to look somewhere else. Y'all know I am the biggest advocate for quit that job. I will tell anyone to quit that job if it is taking a toll on your life outside of work. If you feel like you're at work and you're stressed all day at work, and then you go home and all you're thinking about is the anxiety and the stress that you felt earlier in the day, and then feeling worse about the next day, it is time to leave. Prime example, when I worked at my last corporate job, while I loved my team, I loved the company, I really did enjoy what I was doing, ultimately, I was feeling so overwhelmed and so anxious every single day because I was trying to balance that and basically full-time content creation. There are things that I couldn't excel at in either place because I was juggling way too much. And I'd be anxious all day at work because I'd be thinking about the content that I needed to create, or brand deals I needed to get up, or how many videos I was able to post that day. And then I'd be doing content creation. And I'd be like, well, okay, maybe if I spent less time doing this, I would excel more in my corporate job. And then I would carry that stress throughout the night. And so I wasn't really ever present. And then the next morning I would have the hardest time getting out of bed, you guys. I remember back to this time where I would set my alarm for 7 a.m. because I thought it was really important for me to get some me time before I went to work, and I would snooze and snooze and snooze until literally 7:55 because that gave me enough time to get up, walk the dogs, and then sit down at my desk by like 8:05, 8:10 in the morning and start working. And that was so bad for my mental health. That was so bad for my physical health. I was not doing myself any favors by trying to carry on too much. I wasn't doing myself any favors by acting like I could do it all. Sometimes you can't do it all. And I had to do some reflection on myself and realize I never truly wanted to do it all. That was never my end goal, was to be the girl that can do it all. Really, the big glaring sign was one of these things has to go. That is stress I could get rid of. And my life has been so much better, exponentially better. And that's not to say it's just because I quit corporate. I think if I quit content creation, I would have felt the same way. It was simply that I could not do both at the extent that I was doing both, and I really needed to prioritize myself, and I really needed to eliminate that stress because the stress that I was feeling in work was pouring over into every aspect of my life. It was affecting my relationships, it was affecting my eating habits, it was affecting my workout habits, it was affecting my friendships. I mean, I was just having a really, really hard time, and when one of them went away, which was the corporate job, I started to feel exponentially better. Which leads me into the next point that I have, where I don't believe you can be good at your job if it's the only thing you do. This is for any job. This is from restaurant work to the corporate world to being an entrepreneur, whatever it may be. If that is all you're doing, you cannot be good at it. And I learned that the hard way. I think that when I first quit my corporate job, I jumped straight into content creation and I did not create very healthy boundaries with myself, I was constantly thinking, this should be filmed, this should be recorded, this should be edited, I should be reaching out to them, I should be replying to this. Like, I was always working, and I did not give myself the space that I needed the way that I would when I was working a 9 to 5. You know what I mean? I thought that I just always had to be on, which is what a lot of entrepreneurs say. Okay, well, when you quit your corporate job and you want to do this full time, you always need to be on. And I don't necessarily think that's true. I think over the past couple of months, really weeks, I've been giving myself better boundaries and saying, okay, you are going to work from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. You are going to give it your all from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Before 8 a.m. is your time. After 6 p.m. is your time. And of course, having breaks in between. But those are kind of my working hours, give or take. Say if I have a spin class at 5:30, I'm not going to not go to that spin class at 5:30. But in the morning, I try to get a workout in the morning, whether that's a run, going to a spin class, whatever it may be. I try to get some movement in the morning because that's my me time. That's the time that I have to really focus on myself. And I think that it is really important and really helpful in decreasing stress to make sure that the first thing you do in the morning isn't for someone else. And there are some cases where that just like can't be the case. Some of us have children, some of us have people that we're caring for, where you wake up in the morning and you are immediately tending to them. And that I do understand, but I'm only talking from my experience and my perspective. And I would wake up in the morning, like I was just telling you guys, and come straight to my computer and start working. And I mean, of course I would take care of the dogs, but after I did that, I would go straight to my computer. I'd start working, and I had no time for myself. I wouldn't make breakfast. I wouldn't stretch. I wouldn't drink water. I wouldn't take my morning supplements and medicines. Like, I would literally just start working. And then the things that I would do to care for myself became an afterthought. And I think that put me in a really, really negative headspace. And I was living in this constant state of stress because nothing was getting done in the order that it should have been getting done. Because if I woke up at 7, which I wanted to, I mean, the goal was to wake up at 7, and take care of myself first. But I was just so exhausted and just so stressed out that I really needed every single ounce of sleep that I could get. Because you know how sometimes you don't feel like you're actually sleeping until it's time to get up. Like, all night you're tossing and turning, and then between like 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. it's when you finally get into deep sleep. And then right as soon as you get into deep sleep, your alarm goes off. That's how I was feeling every single day. I was never fully rested. So I was just constantly stressed about it. And I learned that it is so important to take care of myself first thing in the morning. But in the state that I was putting myself in, I simply couldn't do that. And I remind myself and want to remind you guys not to beat yourself up for the things that you can't do given your circumstance. And I also understand that we cannot just change our circumstance on the drop of a hat, but there are often small things we can do to change our circumstances and change our perspective and give ourselves more time and space that we need and not feel so stuck. I think that creating healthy boundaries with work is so, so important. And I talk about work a lot because I think that work is the leading cause of stress within our age range. I think that a lot of us are not married. I think a lot of us don't have kids. I think that a lot of us dedicate a lot of time to working because we are in our mid-20s, our late 20s, or maybe even our early 20s, and we're working so hard because we have goals and things that we want to achieve. Absolutely, of course. But I do think that comes with the negative side effect of not creating healthy boundaries with work. And I think, like I've been saying, that causes a large component of stress that we don't really know how to deal with. And that can stem from waking up, you're working all day, you don't eat lunch away from your desk, you don't take any breaks, you don't step outside. I mean, some people do not see or feel the sun on their face all day, which does awful things to your mind and body. Getting some sunshine on your face first thing in the morning is so drastically important. And every day I'm thankful that I have dogs, because if I didn't have dogs, I don't know how much of a priority that would have been for me. And I don't know if I would have created that habit as early as I did. And that habit has really done wonders for me. But I remind you guys all the time how important it is to eat lunch away from your desk. And I know some days you're so busy and you need to do a power lunch. I totally do understand that. But if that is your habit every single day, what you're telling yourself is you do not deserve some of your own time. You do not deserve some of your own day. And you truly do. And you don't need to wait until 6 p.m., 5 p.m. to get it. You should have some of your own day at the very latest, midway through your day. I don't care if it's a 15-minute break, a 30-minute break. Some of us are lucky enough to have an hour-long break. Whatever it may be, making a habit of getting away from your desk and really giving yourself some of your own time, some of your own energy is transformative. Another leading cause of my stress, and I think a lot of our stress, is seeing our potential and having no idea how to meet it. And what I mean by that is, like, you have all of these dreams, you have all of these goals, and they're attainable because you know yourself. You know you're going to get there. The hope is that you're going to get there. You just don't necessarily know how, and you get really overwhelmed by all of the small mini things you have to do to get there that lead to the bigger things down the line. I can get so stressed by my own potential, and I can get so stressed about my own dreams, and I'm like, okay, I know I'm going to get there, and I feel like I have to work so hard. I have to grind so hard to get there, and that is causing me a lot of stress. And what helps me a lot when I'm in that spiral of feeling like, okay, I don't know when, I don't know how, and now I'm really overwhelmed by the whole thing. It's reminding myself that I am truly right on time for my own life. And the things that want me, the things that are meant for me, the things that I am going to have are going to be there when I get there. I cannot possibly, will not possibly miss out on the life that is meant for me. There is no way to do it. You know what I mean? Like, once you get that truly in your head that you are not going to miss out on the life that you are meant to have, you can give yourself a little bit more time and a little bit more space and stop feeling so stressed out about the when and the if and the how. Your main obligation becomes showing up every day in the way that you can that given day. And some days that's going to look like a full sprint. Some days you're going to get 20 paces ahead and you're going to feel ahead of the curve and you're going to feel great. And some days you're going to be stagnant. Some days, some weeks, you're going to just be right where you started. And you know what? Both of those things are okay, because at the end of the day, you are going to get there, and you just have to trust that, as hard as that may be. The last thing that I've been working on that has really been helping me tremendously is sleeping well. Not just sleeping, but sleeping well and creating a healthy and attainably consistent sleep routine. I'm talking something that feels good to you, not something that you've seen online that you're trying out that doesn't really work for you, but you're trying your best to make it work, or you're forcing yourself to make it work, and you don't feel rested, you don't feel energized, you don't feel good, you're not excited for it. Once I established a better sleep routine, I started to feel so much better. And I'm not saying all of my stress went away. I'm just saying a lot of it did kind of start to alleviate. And one of the big things that I've been really working on and trying to do is not sleeping with my phone directly next to my bed. I know I talked a few episodes ago about how I was thinking about putting my phone in the bathroom or in the kitchen while I slept, but that gives me kind of some anxiety because I'm like, what if somebody needs me? Not that anyone has really historically ever needed me late into the night, but what if they do? You know, all of the racing thoughts you have. I sleep on one side of my room, and then I have to get up out of bed, walk around the bed, unplug my phone, and then be on my phone, which really stops a lot of the, okay, I woke up at 1 a.m., I'm kind of groggy, and I'm going to check my phone to see what time it is. I don't need to check my phone to see what time it is, because once I check my phone to see what time it is, I then check my texts, I check my calls, I check my notifications, because I have been having a really hard time creating that healthy boundary with work when I'm in my subconscious state. I think that it feels very natural to me to wake up and check my phone no matter what time it is, and then immediately open TikTok, see what my notifications look like, immediately open Instagram, see what my notifications look like. Like, it's so habitual at this point, and I'm trying to break it. And the best way I know how to break it is to get my phone the fuck away from me while I'm trying to sleep. If I'm going to check it in the morning, okay, I'm going to check it in the morning. If I'm going to check it throughout the day, okay, I'm going to check it throughout the day. But I am not going to check it when I am in basically REM sleep. Like, I'm not doing that. So I've been sleeping with my phone across the room from me, and that's really been helping. And it's also been helping during my wind down routine, because it is really hard, obviously, to go from scrolling and scrolling up until your head hits the pillow to not scrolling at all. You know, like, that's really, really tough. But scrolling for a little bit, putting my phone on the charger, and then telling myself, okay, I'm not going to go check it, but it's accessible if I need to, gives me a sense of peace, and it doesn't feel so restrictive. I know that my phone isn't in a lockbox or anything. Like, I don't need to crack some secret code or knock on a neighbor's door to get my phone. All I have to do is get out of bed and go to the other side of my bedroom. So it feels a lot less stressful than some of the other alternatives. I know that some people, when I was doing some research on stress, some people were saying that a lot of their stress is tied to their phone, which is what I'm saying now. And so they bought those lock boxes on Amazon that they can put their phone into, and they set it from like 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. or 8 a.m., whatever they're going to wake up. And that just would not work for me. I think that feels really, really restrictive, but creating better boundaries around when I'm winding down and when I'm going to bed. And that's not to say I'm not like doing screens at all. Sometimes I'll watch a show. Sometimes I'll read my Kindle. Like, I'm still on a screen, but it's less of that high-paced, quick, dopamine hitting content that you get on TikTok. And what really, I've been thinking about a lot is that TikTok and the Reels aspect of it really can so easily control your mood in the way that you see something upsetting and then you're kind of upset going into sleep, or you see something that gets your heart rate up and then you got your heart rate up and you have to work on getting it down. Like, TikTok can control your emotional reactions and your physical reactions. And so for me, it is best to just not be on it when I'm trying to go to sleep, which is a really hard habit to break just right off the bat. So I've been trying to do little things to help me get there. But I think on the topic of a sleep routine, I think that having things that you do in the sequence that you want to do them and like to do them to cue to your brain and your body, okay, we're winding down, we're getting ready for bed, and sticking to that. Say you eat dinner around 7 p.m. and then from 7 to 9, you watch a show, you hang out with your partner, you call a friend. I mean, it's your free time. You do whatever you want to do. And then 9 p.m. hits, you get in a warm shower. And then after that, you get in your bed or you do your skincare routine, right? And then you get into bed and you read a book or you watch a show, whatever it may be. But doing that around the same time every night to get your body to start winding down and getting your body used to that is really going to help with sleep hygiene. And sleep hygiene has become increasingly important to me because once I learned how much my lack of sleep or how much my interrupted sleep or my lack of sleep hygiene really did affect me, I started to really work on it. I have the Aura Ring. You guys can see it right here if you're watching. And I love it just because it helps me really understand the data of what works and what doesn't work. I learned that when I got on ADHD meds and I stopped taking my anxiety meds right before bed, I was sleeping so much better. It used to take me an hour, almost 2 hours to fall asleep every single night, and doing something as simple as introducing ADHD meds in the morning and then only taking my bipolar meds at night instead of taking my bipolar meds and my anti-anxiety meds at night has helped me sleep. And I know that with the anxiety meds, it was supposed to help with sleep, but it wasn't helping with sleep for me. So I just had to cut them out. And in that, I was able to talk to my psychiatrist and say, like, hey, this is kind of making me feel a certain way, whatever, and then learn that I really don't need a daily anxiety med. I should be taking my anxiety meds as needed. So, boom, learn something new about myself, which is always a bonus. But those are the little tools that I picked up that have been helping me a lot with my stress lately, and I still have a far way to go. I'm still learning a lot of new things. I'm still understanding new things about my stress and my understanding of self and what does trigger me and what doesn't trigger me and ways I can eliminate stress. I mean, it's all this big thing, but breaking it down into ways that I was just telling you guys about have helped me so much. And I've been feeling a lot better just by breaking it down that way than trying to look at it as this big picture overarching stress theme in my life, because that was not serving me at all. But before I let you go, I just wanted to say, hi, my love, you're going to be fine this week, but let's talk about it super quick. First things first, we're going to look at stress as a problem to solve, not a state of being. We are not going to be living perpetually in stress and just calling it good. That is not good. It's affecting our heads, our hearts, our emotions, our bodies. It's affecting every aspect of our lives. And so when we can look at stress as a problem to solve and something to manage, it helps us mend and heal other parts of our being that we don't even know are being affected. You're going to be fine because you're going to give yourself the space to just be this week for at least a little bit. Maybe in the grand scheme of your whole week, take 5 hours out and just give yourself space to be, where you're not forcing yourself to be anything or do anything or say the right thing. You just get to exist as yourself, however that looks. If that's maybe moving your body in a way that you can't be on your phone, you can't be communicating with anyone, maybe that sounds good. Or if that's just watching a show with your phone on Do Not Disturb, okay, wonderful. If that's cooking a meal that you saw on Pinterest that looks really good, that works too. Whatever it is, where you just get to let yourself be in a state where you're not trying to do something for someone else, is the goal here. You're going to be fun because you're going to remind yourself that you are in charge of your own life. You are no longer a child being controlled by the adults around you. You are the adult. As scary as that might sound, that should also bring you some hope and some joy. You are the adult in your own life, and you get to decide what feels good and what doesn't. And you take what feels good and you leave what doesn't, because that is your right and your obligation to yourself to be on your own side. And that is our goal week in and week out, is to be on our own side in any way we can. And some weeks that's going to feel really easy and really natural, and some weeks we're going to have to work on it. What matters is that we do it anyway. Okay, but that's all I have for you. I love you so much, and I'm on your side. Mwah.